On Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025, Nintendo shared, and obfuscated, details about the Nintendo Switch 2. The direct and subsequent days were filled with the highs and lows of the E3s of old. There were exciting reveals decades in the making of some fans' minds. There was no shortage of unanswered questions. There was plenty of definitive commentary claiming to have those answers. Nintendo Treehouse live streamed across 2 days for a total of 8-ish hours, just giving audiences delightful looks at the games just announced. There was a flood of hands-on impressions and previews. The reveal captured a magic that only a Nintendo console reveal can do, an irrefutable, tangible, chaotic magic thought to be lost to the ancient ways of mega press conferences, brand-loyal magazines, and playground proclamations. The problem with invoking the old magic is that it has disturbed the modern behemoth known online as gamers. Nothing kills the magic faster. During the fallout of the reveal, I've seen flagrant calls for theft and piracy, blatant misunderstanding of inflation and development cost, and most of all, amidst the cries of corporate greed, gamers have shown their underbelly of entitlement, which I can't help but think is fueled by its own form of the green monster. The disrespect on display frustrated me more than any news Nintendo shared these past few weeks. It's embarrassing and shameful. I'm not defending all of the pricing or how the information was presented, but the behavior I saw was so poor that I wish the price increased. I've observed an irony that has only been amplified by the internet's response. Nintendo Switch 2 has a bevy of design decisions fueled by reducing the friction of bringing people together to play games. This split between the divisive reaction and the communal intention is stark, but it reminds me how one is so very short-sighted and one has a generational mindset. The legacy won't be defined by the behemoth's roar and chat, but the joyous ruckus of playing games and memories made together. The Nintendo magic that brings friends and families together. They've been casting that spell for over 40 years, and from what I can tell, the Switch 2 will only enhance their power over us. The Silicon Tablet. I admit I was surprised at how technical Nintendo was in the Direct, and in subsequent interviews. They didn't fully commit to tech specs, chipsets, etc., but they mentioned features I was not expecting. Nintendo are pushing the Switch 2 feature set further along than I ever would have guessed. Nintendo Switch 2 sports a 1080p 120Hz VRR LCD HDR display. That's a nerd's recipe for an alphabet soup if I've ever read one. Right off the bat, this display is sporting feature sets that are definitely not in everyone's homes yet. I suspect there will be many, many kids, heck, adults too, whose best screen to play games on will be the Switch 2 display itself. Let that sink in. The best display in the average consumer's life to play on would be the Switch 2. With these being core features of the console itself, particularly the 120Hz and VRR, Nintendo is inviting developers to target and utilize these capabilities, like the 4 controller ports on the Nintendo 64 or, infamously, the Wii U gamepad. The inherent capabilities of Nintendo's hardware tell devs and consumers alike, hey, use this. We will. The response to this kind of invitation vary from generation to generation, but this one appears quite enticing. We can see this out of the gate with one of the prominent demos from the hands-on events, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Retro Studios is offering a quality mode and a performance mode in the Switch 2 Enhanced Edition with support for 4K 60 and 1080p 120 respectively. According to the fine print, those resolutions will drop to 1080 60 and 720 120 in handheld mode. The press was only able to play the 120 frames per second mode at the event in New York. I get it, this is a high-profile game that is coming out during the Switch console generational transition. Nintendo is putting a best foot forward. Only time will tell how Nintendo themselves and other developers utilize this silicon and tech. Given Nintendo's decades-long track record of fully supporting their hardware's feature set, I suspect we will be seeing slick, optimized, sweet, buttery smooth, gorgeous games. Now, the only time I actually play in handheld mode is on a plane, a train, or a car. Docked mode is where it's at for me, and this one has some interesting implications for my own alphabet soup recipe of a gaming setup. Everything from Nintendo specs indicates that docked mode supports a flavor of the HDMI 2.0 specification, not the full modern HDMI 2.1 bandwidth like the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X. This would theoretically cap things off at 1440p 120 with support for VRR. It also restricts some chroma sampling and more stuff that's above my pay grade of technical understanding. Why this piques my interest is how I could integrate the Switch 2 into my RetroTink 4K daisy chain. The Tink 4K is an HDMI 2.0 device that serves up the same flavor the Switch 2 is promising. Now, the Tink 4K can only receive a 1080p 60 signal, but I find it to be an interesting thought exercise. Is there resource offloading potential here by relieving the demands on the Switch while achieving higher resolutions at the same frame rates? I don't know, but it's a fun thing to think about. In all likelihood, though, the Switch 2 shouldn't need the likes of the Tink 4K, since the dock is sort of unlocking/providing upscaling powers itself. Thanks to a fan and a beefier power supply, the dock lets the Switch 2 shoot for 4K 60 HDR, potentially with the help of NVIDIA's Deep Learning Super Sampling, DLSS, which, as I understand it, is a real-time ML/AI upscaling toolset used in games. Developers can render their games at lower resolutions and leverage DLSS to increase the resolution to a more desirable standard. There are different upscalers like AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution, FSR, or Sony's PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, PSSR, that all strive for the same general feature, making lower resolutions look like higher resolutions. Thanks to Nintendo and NVIDIA's partnership, Switch 2 is rocking a custom NVIDIA chip with cores for the fancy stuff like ray tracing and DLSS. Even the power behind the VRR in the display is NVIDIA G-Sync. I'll be waiting for the Digital Foundry crew for the final say, but I feel confident in saying that the capability is on board. We'll just have to wait and see how the developers use it and how well it performs in real-world gaming scenarios. Tools of the trade. Now, the hardware experience is more than a tablet and the silicon inside. Controllers define our interactions with games. That's part of why I have so many. I'll be frank as a hot dog here. I think Nintendo is cooking this gen. The Joy-Con 2 have been redesigned from scratch, according to Nintendo. Everything is a bit larger, more curved, and smoother. The control sticks are a hot topic, given the rampant issues of drift that have plagued the original Joy-Con. Thankfully, I haven't suffered this fate, but there is no denying that Nintendo wants to solve this problem. Joy-Con 2 don't use the beloved Hall effect joystick, but Nintendo is proud of their new sticks and their feel. Only in the real world will we know how these sticks last under the greasy thumbs of gamers. My favorite part of the new design is the SL and SR buttons. They look thick and are made of steel. Oh, how I hope the click is satisfying. The steel is dual purpose though. They also serve as the connection point for magnets inside the tablet itself, which allows the Joy-Con 2 to attach magnetically to the console. Magnets are cool, full stop. I love them on my phone, on my fridge, and now on my Nintendo console. Gone is the infrared sensor of the right Joy-Con. Say hello to the optical mouse sensor. Both Joy-Con 2 are rocking a little sensor to make the controllers operate like mice. I think this input method will open the floodgate of game types, ports, and options on the Switch 2. Right off the bat, Nintendo showcased it being used in Prime 4, Super Mario Party Jamboree, Drag and Drive, and Civ 7, which seems to amount to 33% of the games that use the IR sensor on Switch 1. The potential for PC game ports is sky high. Please, 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 please bring Emily Is Away to Switch 2. When reading the Ask the Developer article about Switch 2 design, the thinking that went into mouse mode struck me.
Implementing mouse control that's widely used nowadays in the Joy-Con controllers isn't that costly. And I think that's exactly what lateral thinking of withered technology is all about. I thought it was a really great idea, so I proposed it to the technology development department, and they were like, "Oh, we've been thinking about that for ages."
That lateral thinking of withered technology was a development concept from Gunpei Yokoi, the guy behind the Game & Watch, the Game Boy, and was one of the creators behind Metroid. In Nintendo's own footnote, they described this idea that old, cheap, established technology could be repurposed to make new and exciting experiences. The Switch 2 has ushered in this era of handheld gaming PCs. Bringing mouse control is shockingly logical to allow for more games to come to the platform. It helps make the Switch 2 a Swiss Army knife of experiences, but the only Swiss Army knife with legal Nintendo games. Even I had the thought the other day how mouse controls could open up a pathway for Wii pointer emulation. It is remarkable how natural this method sounds for the console, especially when I don't have to use WASD to move around but can use a proper control stick on the other Joy-Con too. Amazing, 10 out of 10 no notes. Let us not forget the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller, which was also redesigned from the ground up. At first glance, I didn't see it, but as more and more reports came in, it became clear that the difference is going to be in the feel. Both it and the Joy-Con 2 are rocking a new HD Rumble 2. Rumble is an obvious you gotta feel it feature. I'll always remember the first time I experienced HD Rumble in the Joy-Con by rolling marbles around inside a controller that small. It still sounds and feels unreal. I am all about any improvements to HD Rumble. The grips/prongs/handles were, quote, designed with reference to the Nintendo GameCube controller, end quote. That's all they had to say to sell me. I do like that the grips and the back make up a single piece of plastic now. That'll be a subtle bump up in the feel quality. Along those grips are two new buttons, G, L, and GR. These are customizable back buttons that can be assigned to any other button input per user and per game. I love back buttons. I feel I rarely need more than two, so this is perfect for me. These buttons are also on the Joy-Con 2 charging grip as well, which is neat to see as a cheaper option to get access to them. My biggest curiosity for the Pro Controller 2 are the sticks. They are apparently, quote, smooth gliding sticks, end quote. They are so smooth that they caught Austin Evans by surprise. If Nintendo went the Hall effect route, they certainly would not have been able to achieve this feel. The question of durability remains, but I am eager to experience it for myself and watch iFixit's teardown. But who cares about those fancy pants Switch 2 controllers when the GOAT is making its return once again? That is right, baby. The reigning champ of 24 years maintains its track record of being released with every Nintendo home console generation. The GameCube controller is getting an NSO version, full wireless USB-C, and the required new buttons tucked up top. I have been staving off purchasing the slew of third-party GameCube lookalikes for years now. This is all I've wanted. I truly do believe the GameCube controller is the best ever made, and I am happy to be able to buy even more of them. Gotta keep a fresh supply on hand. The last major accessory controller input method that I want to touch on before the software capabilities is the Nintendo Switch 2 camera. I may be putting the cart before the horse here by talking about this before the game chat feature, but we're just going to ride with it. Thanks to the USB-C port on top of the console, users can plug in any USB-C camera and use it for game chat video calls and gameplay, like in Super Mario Party Jamboree - Nintendo 2 Switch Edition plus Jamboree TV. Whew. I wager that on day one, someone will get this working with an original Game Boy camera. The official camera itself is 1080p and uses a wide-angle lens. The oh-so-stylish Piranha Plant camera from Hori is 480p in the year of our Lord 2025. At that point, I'd rather just use the Game Boy camera. Fast software? Social software? Best software? I have come to realize just how social the Nintendo Switch 2 has been designed from a software perspective. Game chat, game share, and virtual game cards all lend themselves to a social dynamic. Like the golden era of couch co-op gaming, this software appears to be designed for sharing games and experiences with as little friction as possible with family and friends. The headlining feature is Game Chat, aka Nintendo's version of Xbox 360 Party Chat from 2005. That's the joke me and all of my buddies made at first glance during the Direct. Upon reflection, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I think Game Chat is quite more sophisticated and intentional than Party Chat on the other platforms. Voice and video calls in gaming have been a problem solved with a blunt instrument for the past 20 years. Uno on the Xbox 360 is an infamous example. Quote, "The game supports the Xbox Live Vision camera, allowing opponents to view an image of the player, parentheses, or whatever the camera is pointed at, end parentheses, while playing the game," end quote. Those parentheses carry a lot on their shoulders since I don't really want to link to the wild lore of 360 Uno. I think back to my first experience on Xbox Live at my cousin's house. Not even the talking into a Coke can call quality could muffle the inappropriate language and sounds within my very first match of Halo 3 Online. The industry's solution for connecting people via voice and video mirrors the internet. Open it up with mics and services, build the filtration and tools around communication afterward. I'm not just coming at this from a protect the kids perspective. I'm coming at this from a user experience and how the software feels angle. This behavior is still a problem enabled by the software today, a problem that as an adult I hate dealing with. The slurs and moans of the open web have pushed me further and further away from open, built-in solutions to private, friend-focused hubs like Discord. Using my own toolset, I've tacked on apps, gear, and services to the problem of chatting with friends as an acceptable workaround. The onus of a chat experience we like to use has been placed upon me and my fellow players, while the platform designers continue to polish the turd that was 360 Party Chat. These days, it takes 10 button presses, plus more to invite specific people, to open a party chat on PlayStation 5. That number swells to 19 presses if you want to enter a Discord call, which requires its own setup off console. The other night, I played Super Mario Party Jamboree with my casual gamer friends. I didn't go through the Nintendo Switch app, only Miyamoto knows how many taps that would have taken me to figure out. I did a group FaceTime call. 2 taps. Which brings me to Game Chat and the C button. The dedication of a button is significant. It reduces friction and exemplifies the function's importance. I think of the share button on PS4 and PS5. It makes capturing screenshots effortless. One press and an image is captured. The C button is implying this intentional design to party chat. Now, we don't know how many menu options there will be to select for game chat, inviting friends, sharing your screen, etc. Examining the footage, I can infer that it takes 3 presses to share your gameplay or turn on the camera, 2 to mute. Maybe directly inviting friends is hidden under the gear icon and balloons the presses. What I do know is that it will take just 1 button to open the menu and enter a friend-only accessible chat room, and that button is right on the controller in a prominent position. What about performance then? Well, Nintendo wasn't hiding the choppy frame rates and low resolutions from the gameplay sharing feature. I applaud the honesty in the marketing material. Throughout the Ask Developer interview about Game Chat, the devs repeatedly discussed the hardware resource budget and fitting all of Game Chat in a performance envelope that would not impact gameplay, aka the main purpose of the machine. In an interview with GameSpot, Switch 2's hardware director Takahiro Doda said,
"And now that we have Nintendo Switch 2, there is bigger, more basically resource budget to use. However, even with that enhanced and larger budget, we try to use as little of that as possible. And they made it happen somehow. And within that small slice of the resource budget, there's other things to take into consideration, like network systems, all that kind of stuff. And all of that taking into account is where we landed in terms of the quality of the video that you saw in the footage."
We aren't streaming to Twitch, we're streaming to Switch. I forget how technical and difficult it can actually be to share your gameplay with friends. Consoles have built-in capture capabilities and can even stream to Twitch or YouTube right from the console. Sharing gameplay directly in a call with friends requires capture cards and a PC and third-party software. On PS5, you can watch a friend's screen and pin the video on top of your own gameplay, but it only allows one friend's gameplay to be visible at a time. Plus, it's all buried under its own slew of button presses and hidden menus. I know I am evaluating software functionality and design with zero hands-on. That's a dangerous place to go. The final say will come down to real-world use. Can Nintendo servers handle streaming all of this audio and video? How good is the voice and camera isolation really? Will all of this impact game performance despite the best intentions? all of that doesn't even account for how near impossible it will be for someone like me to migrate calls to game chat. Let's just forget that I play games on other consoles. Us olds have made our home inside our Discord. There will always be other methods and means for chatting it up with friends while playing games. We are a resourceful and determined people. These workarounds are proclamations, though. We want to chat with our friends while we play, and the built-in solution is broken. But the kids and the casual consumers seem to have been given an opportunity. I think of my wife hopping on a phone call to play Stardew Valley or Animal Crossing with her cousins. I think of that game of Super Mario Party Jamboree I just played with my friends. I think of the kids in my life that want to stream with their friends so they prop up iPhones on a FaceTime call. Game chat sounds like party chat for the rest of us. One that is free of technical debt and ideation formed back when all of the Halo games were bangers, who was in our top 8 mattered, and YouTube was in its infancy. Nintendo Treehouse Live streamed a wonderful example with 4 people on a call, sharing their screens playing a multiplayer session of The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords. Besides being the perfect game to showcase a cooperative setting, after a boss fight, the group split and started playing their own games while the call kept going. It was as real-worldy as I could think of an advertising demo to work. When I watched, I didn't care about the frame rates or the resolution. I cared about how they were going to work together and solve the puzzles and beat the boss. I cared who was playing what game. That is the point of this feature. All of this analysis of game chat and its inherent design reminds me of this essay from Craig Mod. Fast software, the best software. These quotes encapsulate the way I've come to think about this new core feature of the Nintendo Switch 2 since I uttered the same jokes about 360-era party chat. Maybe 360-era party chat never went away and has become the joke itself.
But why is slow bad? Fast software is not always good software, but slow software is rarely able to rise to greatness. Fast software gives the user a chance to meld with its toolset, that is, not break flow. It feels, intuitively, that software, beyond core functionality, should aim for speed as a proxy for efficiency. If a piece of software is becoming Turing-esque, unwieldy, then perhaps it shouldn't be a single piece of software. Ultimately, to be fast is to be light, and to be light is to lessen the burden on someone or some task. This is the ultimate goal, for our pocket supercomputers to lessen burdens, not increase them, for our mega-powered laptops to enable a kind of fluency, not battle or struggle, of creation. All that said, it's easy to write an essay about fast software. It's difficult to make fast software, but when it's made, we're all grateful.
While game chat may be the most forward-facing social aspect of the Switch 2 software experience, the others are tied to the act of playing and sharing games themselves. What is old has become new with the reintroduction of GameShare. Like Nintendo DS Download Play, Switch 2 users may beam a version of select games to friends' Switch 2 or Switch 1 consoles. At the moment, I see 6 titles on Nintendo's site that will support the feature. They all seem to be fairly static from a game screen perspective, which probably makes streaming them across a local connection viable. GameShare can also be supported over the internet via the aforementioned Game Chat. I don't imagine the likes of Mario Kart World will support GameShare. The data is so much larger than Mario Kart DS. One tidbit I love from the interviews that I think really exemplifies how ideas never truly die at Nintendo is how they went to the eternal well that is the Wii U for data streaming. Those that were there, we know the gamepad never dropped connection and had ultra-low latency.
So, we thought that by taking advantage of the Switch 2 system's processing power and using the same streaming technology that Wii U uses to send images from the console to the handheld Wii U gamepad, we could share the gameplay instantly without having to take time to transfer the software. I thought it'd be nice if players could share games instantly and play together competitively or cooperatively. This was another feature I asked Sasaki-san to look into. Achieving it must have been a nightmare.
I think similar logic applies to the virtual game card system that Nintendo introduced the week prior. This only really applies to Nintendo Switch Online family plans, but the sentiment stands up alongside the way Nintendo is thinking about sharing games and experiences. This certainly relieves the burden of having to buy multiple digital copies of games within family units, at least in the realm of single-player titles. When I look at the overall promised Nintendo Switch 2 experience, I think I see why Nintendo went iterative with the hardware, besides the 150 plus million other obvious reasons. Nintendo focused beyond hardware and delved into the social dynamic of gameplay outside of the game. Like Street Pass and Miiverse, Nintendo was aspiring for more than satisfactory connection for a quick online match. They want us all to connect together, all together. They set their eyes on the student lounge atmosphere. It's an effort that I did not notice at first, but upon reflection, appreciate and respect the heck out of. Next gen is dead. Long live next gen. The next generation console leap no longer means what it did when I was a kid, at least in the realm of home consoles. When the next console came out, we all got the big boost and new capabilities that new hardware promised, but for the most part, we left the old platform behind in a rather swift fashion. Sure, there were exceptions like the PlayStation 2, but for the most part, next gen meant we were leaving the old hardware and new games for said hardware in the past. During the leaps from the 7th to the 8th and the 8th to the 9th generations, the cross-generational experience was born, and it feels like with Switch 2, it is here to stay. How did we end up with cross-gen? Two ways. Gradually, then suddenly. Gradually, the big three and publishers longed for the install bases they were leaving behind. Adoption of the new consoles was likely slower than desired in those first years. Lots of money was being left on the table. As the technology between the consoles became more similar, developing for both old and new made a whole lot more sense from a business perspective. Now we have blockbuster games still being released on 12-plus-year-old hardware, and when a consumer does upgrade to the next console, they can buy an enhanced version or a director's cut for a nominal or subscription fee. Suddenly, we have Nintendo rolling out the Switch 2 with 3 categories of games playable on the new console: Switch 1 games, Switch 2 Enhanced Editions, and the alluring Switch 2 exclusive. I suspect most people expected Switch 2 to play Switch 1 games. For those that follow the industry closely knew that might not have happened. Thankfully, for the fat stack of Switch 1 carts behind me, they are compatible. But why was there any doubt? The jump from Switch 2 is a significant jump, and the old games are not compatible on a silicon level. It's a similar reason to why PS3 games don't work on any other PlayStation. To solve this, Switch 1 games are being translated and emulated by the Switch 2. My brain jumps right to the Apple Silicon transition. When the Mac moved from Intel's x86 architecture to ARM, old Mac software could not run on those new chips without being translated/emulated. So Apple brought back Rosetta from the last transition and enabled applications to work. And not just work, but run better than before. It's emulation, but a bit more complicated. Valve uses a similar technique with Proton to run Windows games on Linux. Nintendo goes into the process a little bit in their interview series.
If we tried to use technology like software emulators, we'd have to run Switch 2 at full capacity. But that would mean the battery wouldn't last so long, so we did something that's somewhere in between a software emulator and hardware compatibility.
This is getting a bit technical, but the process of converting game data for Switch to run on Switch 2 is performed on a real-time basis as the data is read in.
Switch 2 will have to translate the old games in real time to emulate them. Modern Vintage Gamer has an excellent video postulating how Nintendo approached this problem that I recommend giving a watch. Enhanced editions are the bridge between generations. Certain Switch 1 titles will offer a paid upgrade for, at minimum, higher resolutions and frame rates, with some including add-ons and expansions. These feature ranges also mean price ranges from $10 to $20. Notably, the enhanced editions for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are included with a subscription to Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. 6 titles are being advertised at the moment, and I have to admit, I like the approach. It's the same with some of the games from PlayStation's catalog that got PS5 versions with upgrade pricing. What I like about the games on display here is the experimentation in what is offered. The DLC offerings for Kirby and the Forgotten Land and Super Mario Party Jamboree remind me of the days when we were getting DLC expansions. There's a strange nostalgia bubbling inside me when I consider the upgrades. The performance boosts alone feel worth it to me, especially as someone in the middle of Tears of the Kingdom. And we all know Pokemon Legends EA will need all the performance it can get. I am curious what other Switch 1 titles will get enhanced down the line. It feels like a semi-exciting way to spice up my existing library. I suspect Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition's hidden 60 FPS mode will be a part of some enhanced offering. Without wading too deep into the pricing discussion, should these have been free? I don't think so. The games with brand new content for sure. The resolution and performance bumps seem to be a tougher sell to the masses. It's vital to remember that these enhanced editions don't mean that those games aren't playable or accessible on Switch 2. I think of Death Stranding's Director's Cut on PS5. I could easily play my PS4 disc in the console and get some inherent boost to performance. If I want the ultra-wide mode, which I do, all of the post-release content and new modes and vehicles, etc., I should, and did, pay the $10. I've seen a bit of an uproar that the Zelda games are $70 and $80 respectively if you buy the new enhanced editions outright, as in you don't own the Switch 1 version. Well, I hate to break it to those folks, but Nintendo is not one to lower prices, and Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are still sold at full price on the regular. If someone does want to save money, buy them secondhand and then get the upgrade pack. A used copy of Breath of the Wild is $45 at GameStop without a sale. Buy that, then spend $10 more for the enhancements. Saves you $15 right there, and that's without waiting and looking for better deals. Alright. I'll save the rest for the pricing section. All that's left are the full-blown Switch 2 exclusive games. The Direct was packed with strong third-party support. Turns out that when you sell a wildly successful console, the other publishers will want to make money on your platform. The Switch saw some impossible ports. The train of third-party titles does not appear to be slowing down. I mean, Nintendo has a From Software exclusive. Speaking of third-party games, let's talk about game key cards for a sec. Felt like the whole internet freaked out when Nintendo revealed these suckers. That's the problem when people go reactive instead of reading and using their brain. I'm sorry, but game key cards are genius, both pro-consumer and pro-business, as we inch toward an all-digital future. A major trend over the last generation was physical boxes in stores, but with a piece of paper and a code inside to download the game. Once the code is used, the game is tied to the redeemer's account. There's no way to sell or share. One and done. The game keycard is a solution to this problem. Pop the cartridge in your console and you will be able to download the game. Then you will have to insert the card whenever you want to play. Done with the game and want to sell it? Go for it. Want a friend to borrow the game? Hand it over. This gives value back to the consumer who purchased a physical version of a digital game. I saw people immediately assume this was all Switch games. Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition is going to be all on the cartridge. If CD Projekt is putting that monster of a game all on the cart, I think we will be fine. As someone with a massive physical collection, am I thrilled at the idea of fewer games really and truly being physical? No. But I am thrilled to see a physical, reusable solution to the code on a piece of paper that publishers have been using since the PS3 and 360. This is a compromise I am more than willing to accept. How flippin' good does Mario Kart World look? After more than a decade of Mario Kart 8, this new game looks invigorating. There is so much to take in, from wall rides and grinding to 24 racers on track now. The entire world is interconnected. Players race from track to track now. It's non-stop racing and chaos with that number of racers. Please bring back the All Cup Tour. There is this new mode that I'm captivated by, Knockout Tour. Like qualifying in a Formula 1 race, players have to reach a certain place by these markers, miss the cutoff, and you are knocked out of the race. It's a mix of Mario Kart and a battle royale, and I can't wait to play this online and with friends. To help maximize the roster, Nintendo has taken an everyone is here Smash Brothers style approach. we have just about every enemy and side character from the world of Super Mario. Goomba, check. Koopa, check. Dolphin, check. Little toad that spits out coins, check. Cow, check. I suspect the roster will be quite large. It makes me curious about DLC for the game. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe brought in new racers over time, including some from outside of the Mario IP, like Isabelle, Inklings, and Link. I do hope that non-Mario characters return, but given the seemingly huge swath of new racers, I could see it not happening. I picked up on tons of details, and so have the folks that are playing the demo at the hands-on experience. It feels like too much to link to here, too dense. The game is brimming with content, it seems. I did see one report that said the game has 120Hz mode. It also seems like that through the internet, it is possible to link up 24 players for races. I have long dreamed of playing Double Dash with 16 players over the GameCube LAN connection. Now I dream of 24 people playing World together in one space. Welcome Tour. More like Welcome to Japan in 2007, where Wii Sports was not a packing game with the Wii. I jest at the start here because the most talked about thing with the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour is that the interactive System Tour game is not included with the console but is a $10 digital-only title. The comparisons to Wii Sports and Astro's Playroom on PS5 were instantaneous. Even the former president of Nintendo America, Reggie Fils-Aimé, chimed in on the conversation. Marty Sleva brought up a good point on the Firelink podcast on Second Wind. It'd just be good business to include Welcome Tour on the console. Yes, good hard work went into designing and making the game. There's value there, and could be charged for. But the inverse could be said about giving it away with every Switch 2 console. The packing game isn't super common, but they are almost always remembered. As for the game itself, I think it's cute. The top-down little figurine design reminds me a bit of the Square Enix Go games. I like the idea of making the Switch 2 console a deconstructed and interactive object. That reminds me of the Mario Kart levels where you would battle on the console. The minigames and demos sound fun in an interactive museum exhibit sort of way. I feel like young players would enjoy it. I definitely plan to subject my family to the Guess the Frame Rate game. The Super Mario Bros. World 1-1 stretching across a 4K display at its original resolution sounds delightful. While not a Switch 2 exclusive, I have to shout out Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. That game sure looks pretty. There's a reason Nintendo showed it off 4K 60 exclusively on their Treehouse livestream. I love the idea of mouse mode support and its implementation. It appears so seamless. The Switch 2 Enhanced Edition and the new trailer from the week prior have lit a prime fire under my butt. I am back playing Metroid Prime Hunters for my podcast Chapter Select and its 7th season. To crib some lyrics from a classic. He's back again and about time too. Donkey Kong is returning to the third dimension and leading his own game. I've been pining for a new DK game for a very long time. I thought that this kind of game would come out around the Super Mario Bros. Film, since Mario, Luigi, and Princess Peach all got their own games not far from that movie's release. It turns out that the Big N was waiting for their next console. This action-adventure 3D platformer is basically Super Mario Odyssey, but with Monkey. And I'm so here for it. There appears to be a kinetic movement that you'd hope with the DK game, along with a destroy everything in your path smashing mechanic. The art style looks to me like a fusion of Odyssey and the rare N64 games. I'm in love with DK's new old expressions and mannerisms. I am a smidge nervous about how easy it will be to circumnavigate intended puzzles and routes with the destruction. This will be another wait and see for how the game feels to play. Thankfully, we only have to wait 1 month after launch to get our hands on the perfectly named Donkey Kong Bananza. Out of the gate, the rest of 2025 looks stacked for Nintendo and the Switch 2. And that's not to mention all of the other huge releases. Here's the list I whipped up based off what has been confirmed. In June, we have Mario Kart World, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom Enhanced Editions. In July, we have Donkey Kong Bananza and the Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV. August is the enhanced edition of Kirby and the Forgotten Land. There's nothing really in September or October. November is probably when Pokemon Legends ZA is coming out, and nothing confirmed for December. We do have windows for Dragon Drive in the summer, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment in the winter, Kirby Air Riders 2025, and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is also 2025. Then we'll have whatever they announce this summer. 2025 is shaping up to be a historic year in the video game industry, and for my wallet. The variables of price. Saved this pricing discussion for the end, just like Nintendo. I want to address the terrifying elephant in the room first. For Nintendo, this could not have happened at a worse time. 2 days after announcing the price and pre-order date, they semi-indefinitely delayed the privilege to give them money. I wager it was a very busy weekend for Doug Bowser and the other executives. During the time I've been writing this piece, the tariff news has gone up and down in relation to the Switch 2. Nothing is set in stone, and therefore I don't want to comment on it in any concrete manner. The only definitive thing I would speculate on is that this will not be a defining moment in the Switch 2's legacy. It will be a part of the reveal story, but I don't think it'll be a generational cloud looming over the console. Some baby advice I heard recently sticks out in my mind. Nothing lasts longer than 2 weeks, which is just a baby-focused way of saying that nothing lasts forever. Kid not sleeping, won't eat veggies. It may feel like a forever thing in the moment, especially in a sleep-deprived, desperate state of mind, but it won't be like that forever. I think it is safe to say that the tariff speculation and potential price increase fits in a similar boat. This too shall pass. Sticking with the as-announced facts, Switch 2 is launching on June 5th. Happy birthday to me! This automatically makes this the best console launch ever in the history of console launches. I am thrilled you all get to celebrate with me as I turn 31 years old. What a gift. Nintendo Switch 2, all by its lonesome, is priced at $449.99. I think that is a fair and logical price, especially when given the technology packed inside the device. It helps that I felt $450 was going to be the price from the outset of the year. Quote, I suspect the original Switch, Lite, and OLED will remain on sale for the foreseeable future, much like the DS and 3DS lines did with their iterations. That means the Switch 2 cannot be any lower than $400, or keeping the first Switch around makes no sense. With over 140 million units out there, I don't see Nintendo just shutting off sales yet. All of this has come true. Nintendo is keeping the Switch 1 alive, at least until 2026.
Now, I even wonder, what is the definition of a console cycle? We'll continue to keep Nintendo Switch as part of the family, giving consumers a number of different entry points that they can come into the gaming universe. What I would say is that we'll continue to observe consumers and how they engage and enter into the platform at various levels to try to really understand what the future may look like. Here's the other point. We have an install base of 150 million plus units. We'll probably announce more on May 8th when we have our next earnings call. We want to keep those players engaged. Not all of them may be ready to jump to Switch 2.
I know $450 is PS5 territory here in the States. It's Steam Deck territory. But neither of those does quite what the Switch 2 does. Either specs don't line up, or the required accessories to have similar parity blow out the price. All else being equal, the Switch 2 will be the only place to play Mario. And while you shouldn't buy hardware on the promise of software, the promise of first-party Nintendo is hard to write off, even in the face of $80 price tags. I'm sorry to say you won't find pricing outrage for me on the games either. One look at inflation alone will tell you that games are priced fairly to what they were just 8 years ago, if your definition of fair is maintaining the illusionary $60 price tag. I think games need to be more expensive. I've been saying this since 2017 when it dawned on me how much value and time I was getting out of the likes of Witcher 3, Breath of the Wild, and Red Dead Redemption 2. Let's be real for a second. We'll be playing Mario Kart World for the next 8 years, most likely. That's $10 a year. I paid $120+ for Mario Kart 8 across Wii U and Switch. I pay for the NSO Plus Expansion Pack's family plan. All of that was well worth the cost considering the memories and game time I poured into a single Mario Kart title. I am confident in Nintendo's first-party development and its quality going into the Switch 2 generation. Look, I understand $80 is a big pill to swallow. Gosh, it's how much some retro games I want cost on the market these days. It deters me from investing more often than not. We have to make some calls, and that's the hard truth of the matter. The work, research, dev time, etc. that goes into these games has value and merit. I certainly expect we will see increased prices from the other major players now that Nintendo has ripped off the Band-Aid. I do find Nintendo's variable pricing to be an interesting tidbit. Donkey Kong Bananza being only $70 is cool and appreciated. Doug Bowser talked about this in the same aforementioned interview with the Washington Post.
What you see right there is variable pricing. We'll look at each game, really look at the development that's gone into the game, the breadth and depth of the gameplay, if you will, the durability over time, and the repeatability of gameplay experiences. Those are all factors, and there's many more that go into consideration of what is the right price point for the game. So I think you can anticipate that there will be variable pricing, and we haven't set a benchmark.
Would Bananza be $70 if it was actually Super Mario Odyssey 2? There's a part of me that doubts that. Then again, if Bananza is being made by Koizumi's team inside Nintendo EPD, then the game has one of the best development teams in the world behind it. Perhaps there is some truth in what Doug is saying to quell the pessimistic voices in my mind. Bananza is, for the most part, a play-it-once kind of game, while the likes of Mario Kart World have infinite replay value. Am I thrilled about spending $620 in a couple of months? Nah. But I've been saving since January. I've made sacrifices, I've sold things. It's important to me to buy one, but I certainly don't need it. You'll have to make that decision for yourself and put in the effort and patience to save for one. We have to vote with our wallet, not the empty threat of a YouTube comment. There's nothing quite like a Nintendo console reveal. When the old magic is invoked, I feel a certain way. There's a rush of exciting possibilities. My imagination is sparked. Brain power is exerted on analysis and scrutiny. Fingers fly and thousands of words come pouring out. In the past, my words would have joined the cacophony of social media posts, lost on the seas of online discourse where Leviathan disturbs the waters. I used to lend my voice to the cry. Not necessarily in agreement, but in fervor and unrelenting decibels. I'd wrestle with cost, weighing the personal cost of trade-ins, attempting to satisfy my own beast of greed. Today, my words have been considered and crafted with patience. I hope I am contributing instead of cursing. I cling to my memories tighter and tighter while they fall ever faster through my worn fingers. I look to the future where I can hopefully share some pieces of my past with my own child. As I listen to and ponder on the ancient incantations of my youth, no one game or piece of technology stands out. It's not software that floods my mind, but images of spaces and people around these products we call video games. I see kids huddled on the floor around a wooden TV stand with molten pizza bites and 3-pronged controllers roaring with laughter at the deadly accuracy of red shells. I remember the excitement of staying up all night playing a paper-themed adventure just to immediately fall asleep after the sun rose. The revelations of playground discussions or the wisdom of those older than us passing along secrets. I go back to garages and basements and hidden cubbies under the stairs and the always desirable back seat of the van. The old magic takes me back. I don't know how many times I'll get to go back like this again. It is a powerful spell and one that I don't think I'd break if I could. It's certainly not one that I will let the faceless behemoth take from me. I hope you all will engage with the magic in your own way, instead of letting the monsters and shadows rob you of the possibilities cresting over the horizon at the dawn of a new generation.